Julia Child presents the Chicken Sisters, Miss Broiler, Miss Fryer, Miss Roast.
In 1958, Julia Child wrote a letter to her sister that contained marriage advice so daring it remained hidden for decades. She described it as her personal secret to a lasting, happy marriage. The words were so bold that when she later shared the same advice in a whisper to a famous chef during the 1970s, the listener was left utterly speechless. Through her private letters to her husband, Paul, the world would later discover that Julia Child was nothing like her cheerful and polite television persona. Behind the scenes, she was a woman of deep passion, curiosity, and unfiltered honesty, someone who openly wrote about love, temptation, and desire in ways that startled even her closest friends. The real Julia Child was wild, fearless, and unapologetically herself. Julia Carolyn McWilliams was born on August 15, 1912, in Pasadena, California. Her family was comfortably wealthy, living in a spacious craftsman-style home that reflected their upper-class status. Her father, John McWilliams Jr., was a Princeton graduate who managed large pieces of land and several business interests. Her mother, Carol Weston, came from a prominent Massachusetts family and had inherited considerable wealth from her father, who once served as the state's lieutenant governor. Julia was the eldest of 3 children, with a younger brother named John and a sister named Dorothy. Their childhood was one of privilege, filled with travel, private schooling, and comfort. Julia attended Polytechnic School starting in 4th grade and later transferred to the prestigious Westridge School for Girls. Despite the family's affluence, she never learned to cook because household servants took care of everything. Instead, she imagined herself becoming a writer, spending much of her time dreaming of penning novels. She graduated from Smith College in 1934, filled with creativity but unsure of where her life was heading. From a young age, Julia knew she was different. By her teenage years, she already stood an impressive 6 feet 2 inches tall, towering over nearly everyone around her. Most girls her age were much shorter, and her height made her a constant target of teasing. Classmates called her names like giant and freak, and those hurtful words left deep marks on her self-esteem. While attending the Katharine Branson School, she often felt awkward and out of place. But her tall frame also gave her a physical advantage in sports. She became talented in tennis, basketball, and golf, and athletics helped her gain confidence. Yet, the pain of being mocked never completely faded. When she later attended Smith College, she used humor, athleticism, and mischief to cope. Julia became known for her sense of fun. Once, during a school assembly, she hid an alarm clock inside an organ, setting it to ring loudly in front of hundreds of students. The prank made everyone laugh, and it showed her natural flair for drama and boldness. Still, that same spirit masked insecurities born from years of standing out. Those early experiences later fueled her confidence on television, where her charisma and larger-than-life presence became her signature. Julia's outlook on life didn't align with her family's conservative beliefs. Her parents were firm Republicans, deeply traditional, while Julia began questioning authority and social norms from a very young age. At just 10 years old, in 1922, she asked her father why their black household staff were treated differently and unfairly. The question angered him and caused tension at home, but Julia never forgot that moment. It marked the start of her lifelong willingness to challenge injustice. As she grew older, she became even more outspoken. During the 1950s, when Americans were being falsely accused of communist ties, she boldly defended free speech and civil rights. Later, in 1990, she criticized Republican politicians who claimed to be pro-life, while ignoring the struggles of real children lacking basic health care. Even in 1985, long before environmental activism became mainstream, she warned about the dangers of pollution, saying Earth could one day end up like Venus, a scorched and dying planet, if people didn't change. Julia's progressive views often clashed with her family's old-fashioned ideals, but she never backed down from what she believed was right. Despite her privileged upbringing, the food Julia grew up eating was almost painfully bland. The housekeepers overcooked vegetables until they were mush, and served meat so dry it lacked any flavor. Years later, in her memoir, Julia recalled those meals with humor and disdain, calling them dull, mushy horrors. She never learned to cook at home, and no one in her family expected her to. Yet, a seed of rebellion was quietly growing inside her. One day in 1925, she nearly gagged on soggy green beans, a moment she never forgot. That unpleasant childhood memory became part of what drove her later obsession with good food. When she finally discovered French cuisine in 1948, it felt like a revelation. The richness, flavor, and artistry of French cooking completely transformed her view of life. She once described that experience as a door opening into a new world. From then on, she rejected the artificial and the bland, calling powdered soup immoral in a 1970s interview and refusing to embrace diet trends. Julia wanted real butter, rich sauces, and meals that made people feel alive. When her groundbreaking cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, was released in 1961, it wasn't just a culinary manual. It was her rebellion against everything dull and tasteless from her childhood. Julia's boldness had always been part of her personality, even as a child. In 1922, at just 10 years old, she and her siblings loved climbing trees and throwing water balloons at passers-by. She once proudly soaked 15 people in one afternoon. Her family, known for their proper and serious demeanor, didn't find it amusing, but Julia loved the chaos and laughter. At Smith College in the early 1930s, her mischievous spirit continued to shine. Once, she helped a group of students steal all the furniture from a rival dorm just for fun. She also joined a tongue-in-cheek group called the Brass Cops Club, which humorously enforced lawn rules. Her favorite holiday was April Fool's Day, when she orchestrated elaborate pranks like hiding alarm clocks in chapel organs during assemblies. These moments weren't just playful. They revealed her courage, wit, and refusal to take life too seriously. Though her academic grades were mostly average C's, her confidence and daring personality would later help her take massive risks both in her culinary experiments and on live television. After graduating from Smith College, Julia attempted to build a conventional career. In 1934, she moved to New York City and got a job at W&J Sloan, a high-end furniture store, working as a copywriter. She earned $18 a week writing advertisements for catalogs, but Julia quickly grew frustrated with the rigid corporate structure. When her boss demanded she change the wording of an ad, she refused, insisting her version was better. Her stubbornness got her fired in 1937 for what they called gross insubordination. It was humiliating at the time, especially since she had previously worked at the company's Los Angeles branch, but Julia later saw the experience as a blessing. The job had never fulfilled her, and losing it freed her to search for something that truly inspired her.